Welcome to my fall garden. As I was visiting my garden and walking through it, I started finding a lot of volunteers. And I thought, you know what? Let me talk about volunteers in this vlog. So, first of all, volunteers are plants or seeds that have fallen from the prior season's planting, and the fruit or the seeds from those plants fall in the soil, and then they just sit there dormant until the conditions are right for them to then come up. And so what happens is, right now we're in the fall. We had a very heavy, abundant summer garden, and some of the fruits and flowers I was not able to get to, so a lot of the seeds fell in my soil. And so what's happening right now is a lot of those seeds are germinating and coming out. Now, these plants, because they're summer plants, they won't have time to grow and produce anything because before the first frost. There are the summer plants that need sun and the heat and the warmth. You know, most of them die when, you know, it hits below 0 degrees Celsius or 32 degrees Fahrenheit. And so these plants are not really going to go anywhere. And so what I'm doing is I'm just looking at them, and if I'm planting already things around them, I'm cooling them so that they don't take energy from the things that are already planted. And actually, I'm going to be visiting my father in Florida in the next couple of days. And so what I'm doing is the ones that are already germinated, I'm actually going to be collecting some of them and putting them in cups and bringing them to him on Florida, because these plants, while they won't get anywhere here in Georgia, zone 7B, they will actually flourish in Florida, zone 10B, through the whole fall and winter. And so I'm going to take advantage of the fact that they already started, that they're already getting accommodated, and I'm going to bring them to my dad in Florida. But other than that, the rest of them, I'm just going to look at them, learn what comes up, why it comes up, and if they come up right now, more than likely in the spring, I will have more volunteers. And so I need to see where those are and see, you know, what's going to happen in the spring so that I'm prepared for it. One of the great things about volunteers is that if they are growing in the place where you want them to be, then you don't have to plant them next year, right? And so I'm going to look at that. And the other thing is that now you also need to be aware, so that if you don't want them to grow where they are, that then, you know, you make sure that you mulch really heavily or you pull the early seedlings off. So one of the volunteers that are happening, which was a big surprise for me, are onions. As you can see here, these are volunteer onions. I'm thinking, what are those things that are coming out? And, you know, and I thought they were weeds at first, but I just tried them, and these are onions. I had no idea that my onions had gone to seed and dropped the seed and grow onions, which is funny because I already started onions from seed that I'm going to plant as soon as they grow. But these ones are already growing. The problem with these ones is that I have 2 or 3 and 4 seedlings growing together, and so I'm probably gonna cut one, you know, leave it so that there's only one left in each bunch, so that they have the chance to actually grow and be healthy. Let's see what happens, right? Part of these gardening, you know, backyard gardening, potager gardening in your backyard is that you get to experiment with things like that. And so it's fun and funny to see that I have a few onions growing in the middle of my cabbage for the fall. So we'll see what happens. So I'm going to go ahead and give you a tour of all the volunteers I found and why they were there, and then hopefully you get to learn a little bit about them, and know that as you're doing your garden, if you haven't started yet, when you do it, and if you already started, you know, maybe I have some volunteers that you don't have, and then you will see what that looks like. All right, so let's go ahead and check out all these volunteers. So let's go ahead and start with these onions. So when you find volunteers, again, I didn't plant these onions here. I planted onions in here last winter. And then I guess the onions that were here end up going to seed, and they planted more onions. Now, when you find this, you had to make a decision as to what to do with these volunteers, right? Again, volunteers are those plants that you did not plant, but because of prior plants, the seeds fell on the ground and then they germinated. So in this case, onions are okay to plant right now. Like I mentioned, I already started onion seeds so that I'm going to plant them. And the thing about onions, the same as garlic, is that they need to overwinter, meaning to be in the soil over your winter to be able to have the maximized size of the roots of that is onions and garlic. And so it's okay that they're here right now. They're a little bit longer or bigger than I would want them, to overwinter, but not too terrible. I still want to experiment. The challenge is that some of these are one seed and some of these are multiple. So this, for example, if you look in here, see, it's one plant that has already 4 or 5 leaves. So that is okay to stay. This one here is also one plant, and sadly I pulled some of its leaves, but it still has, one leaf, I guess. It's still one, very close to this other one. So you know what? It's so close that this bulb will not grow very much if I leave this one here. So I'm actually going to pull that one, and I'm going to use it for breakfast. There you go. It tastes amazing. All right, now this other one here that's next to it, so it's really only 2 plants now. There were 3, but that's only 2. This one here, actually, I don't know if you can see. I'm going to try to get closer here. This one has 3 plants. You see that? 3 plants? That is not going to work. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the one that feels the most sturdy, which is this one in the left, and I'm going to go ahead and cut the other 2 so that the one I'm going to cut, so this is 3, so I'm going to cut this one and leave this one so that that one has a chance to actually bulb. When you have 3 onions that close together, you will end up with no bulb at the end. So I want to give them the best chance, so I'm going to cut this one and this one. That while they feel pretty good, they don't feel as good as this one here, and strong. And so I will sacrifice these 2 so that I can have this one and have 2 and give them a chance to grow over the winter and hopefully harvest these onions in the spring or summer. Before we go to the other volunteers, I'm going to show you how I'm going to cut them. So again, there are 3 onions growing here. So I'm going to leave this last one that feels the strongest in here. I'm going to try to pull that one. No, that's not pullable. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this at the bottom, and I'm going to keep these because this is like green. This is like green onions, guys. Very nice. And I will have them for breakfast, like I said. So I put that to the side. So I cut one. Make sure that that's the right one. So all tangled up because I was playing with them. Okay, there you go. Yeah, that. Okay, so this one still feels the strongest. All right, so this one still feels the strongest, so I'm going to cut this one too. All right, and whatever is left in here, it will just decompose and give nutrition to the ground. So that's perfectly fine. And now I have 2 volunteer onions that cost me nothing, and I might have 2 extra delicious onions in the spring. Let's go see the next volunteer. In this bed, I have several volunteers. That one, there. And look at all of those right there. And look right there, right around my Brussels sprouts. Lots of them. And all of those are tomatoes. Okay, so with this volunteer tomatoes, I'm gonna do a few different things. Some of them I'm just going to pull and take them out so that they don't, and I'm gonna let them decompose in place, meaning they will turn their organic matter into nutrition for the soil. Some of them that are already growing their true leaves, I'm actually going to collect and put them in cups to bring to Florida for my dad. Now, one of the problems with volunteers is that you don't really know if you grow several of the same kind. You don't know which ones they are. I literally grew 7 different types of tomatoes. These are tomatoes. I don't know what kind they are. I don't know they're cherry tomatoes or they're Abraham Lincoln tomatoes or Roma tomatoes. Based on where they are, they could be, I think, either Abraham Lincoln or Roma tomato or cherry tomatoes. Now, I literally just planted different tomatoes together. I didn't put them all together. I literally just spread them. And so I guess it's going to be a surprise to see what kind of tomatoes grow from those tomatoes. But I'm sure my dad will love to have just those plants started and start seeing them grow through the fall and the winter. So let's go ahead and collect some of those. All right, so I am going to be, first of all, choosing 2 tomato plants. I won't know if they're the same or not. I'm going to take one from this bunch and one from a bunch back there, in the hopes that maybe this way I am picking 2 different types of tomatoes. And I already have my cups here with potting mix, and I already wet it. As you can see, it's still dripping water, so that it goes into a very moist, friendly environment for both of these plants. I have 2 other cups for 2 other volunteer plants that I'm going to try to put in a cup and take with me to Florida. So all I'm bringing is this little plastic knife, not very fancy, and I'm going to try to pull these tomato plants as gently as possible so that I don't damage the roots, even though there's one that's by itself in here. But this one looks so much more healthy. See how this one is tiny and these ones are bigger? So I'm going to pull these ones first, and if they look good, then I'll just take one from that one. If not, I'll just take this one that is by itself. Alright, so let's see. I'm basically digging around it. As deep as I can. Gently put, there you go. So as you can see, here are the plants, there are the roots. Oh. And the great thing about tomatoes is that you can actually plant them very deep. So I'm going to try to separate them. Okay, that one's already broken. See how you separate them? This one will be amazing. Okay, well here we go. I think that's a winner. I think that is a winner right there. See how deep it is? I can literally plant it all the way to this neck, and it will let all these make roots. That's a tomato plant. Now that's something about tomato plants. Not every plant you can do that. But in tomatoes, every part of its stem will produce roots. So this is a perfect one for me to take. I just found out what type of tomato this is. If you can see at the bottom of it, there is a yellow, there's still a yellow peel. So this is the Italian ice tomato. I loved it. So I'm sure my dad's gonna love it too. Okay, so the way I'm gonna plant it, as you can see, it's a pretty long stem. I'm gonna try to plant it as deep as I can. So I'm going to make a very deep hole in here. I'm trying to make it all the way to the end, and I don't know if you can see that. And then you see how deep that's going to be, all the way down there. And then only the top of the tomato. And now this plant will be able to produce roots all throughout its stem. This is going to be a great one. Okay, one done, one more to go. Now you may have noticed I am not an expert YouTuber. I'm just here to share knowledge and information and using my camera, my phone camera, and anyway, so hopefully this works out. Okay, So here is the other bunch that I'm going to get a plant from to take another plant to my dad in Florida. And so I'm gonna make the hole around it as big as I can and deep. I don't want to damage any of the roots, and go down. There we go. Oops. Okay, not very good. But all right, so but there we have a lot of good ones. Okay, so here we go. This one seems to be the strongest, but oh, still in. Can I pull it out? There you go. All right, so this one seems to be the strongest one and the longest one that I could then plant deep. So it may be the same plant. I don't see peel in it, so it may be a different tomato. So now I'm going to plant this one, and those are the two that I'll be taking with me. Here is the cup. I'm going to put this down for a second. I'm going to make the hole as deep as I can. You can see that, right? And all I did is with the plastic knife push it around. Grab this, had it go as deep as possible, and surround. I'm going to take these leaves out because I don't want any of the leaves touching the soil. And now press it just a little bit, and now we have 2 tomato plants to take. And the fact that they're already healthy, happy, is going to be fantastic. This is a great thing about volunteer plants. Okay, this is an extreme case of, or should I say, an example of how plants just want to live. I only planted 4 long red beans, fall beans, for the fall. This one, this one, this one, and this one. In this trellis, I also planted, or should I say in the spring, I planted melons, cucumbers, and the same red pole beans. But look how much is growing. I mean, there's so many that they literally are lifting pieces of soil to be able to come out and live. I mean, plants are just amazing. I am not sure if they look, no, I'm not sure what they are. I think they may be melons. I'm not really sure. So we're gonna have a surprise because, see, if you see these red pole beans, they come with 3 leaves together. You see how 3 leaves? And then this one has 3 leaves. These ones all are only 2 leaves. See, 2 leaves. So they're not the red pole beans. They may be melons. Anyways, whatever it is, I will be taking one of them, maybe 2 of them, put them in a cup and bring them to my dad because I know they're not going to grow in this winter. But my dad in Florida will. So might as well take advantage of the plants that are already well established and doing great. Now, if I wasn't going to Florida and bringing that to my dad, I will probably just cut a few. I'm still going to let a few grow to see what happens. But more than likely, we're not going to get anything. But again, I'm learning to see how things grow. And this is so much fun. A lot of wind today. Okay, let's get to it. So first, I'm going to explore which ones seem the healthiest. And this one here looks really good. These 2 right here. So they're probably not very deep. Still using my knife, handy dandy plastic knife, to loosen them up. Okay. I don't want to damage any of the roots. I see seeds come out, so maybe they are red pole beans. Oh, beautiful. And what came up with them is red pole beans. So they are red pole beans. Somehow I planted them way on the right. I planted them way over there, and somehow they come all the way here. But this is a beautiful specimen. This is going to do really well. It was pretty deep, so I'm going to plant it in sort of the same depth that it was out here, so that it mimics the soil that it was in. This is going to be great. Yeah, love that. See how easy that is, guys? And now this plant is going to get the chance to live its life somewhere else where it will be loved and it will be able to flourish. Now this is when it's going to be a problem, because it is a pole bean, which means that it needs support to go up. It's going to go up and up and up and up. It needs a trellis. So I need to think what I'm going to do to help my dad be able to take care of this one. Awesome. Another volunteer. Okay, so these last volunteers that I'm going to share with you are these little guys. Look how many there are. There's tons and tons of them. This is where I planted my pineapple grand cherries. I would say my favorite plant for 2021. And they're a family of the tomato. They're not really cherries. They're more like tomato cherries type of thing, but they come in a husk. I mean, they're a completely different plant, and they are super sweet. Like truly, you know, sometimes you hear gardeners say, oh, it's so sweet. No, these ones are really sweet, and they're called pineapple ground cherries because they truly taste like little pineapple kisses is what I call them. And so clearly lots of them fall, and lots of them now have come up, and as you can see, they're still very young, so I'm going to actually take a few. I'm going to put 3 in this cup, and I'm hoping that at least one of those plants will develop well. And so I'm just really amazed. They're all small, they're all tiny. I don't see anything that has developed much bigger. So I'm just gonna pull them out and then pick the ones that seem like the stem is the strongest. That one looks great. Can you see that? Hope you can. That's one. That's another one. Again, making the hole with a knife. It doesn't have to be very wide. And then I'm just gonna put it in there and pat it down, and one more. All right, so that is 3 pineapple ground cherry plants from volunteers that now we have a chance for a second life. These guys over here, I'm going to be planting onions in here, so I'm sorry to say all these babies are going away. Oh, so painful. But I need them not to establish here because I need to be able to have these free of any other plants or weeds for when I plant my onions in here. I will be planting my onions throughout my garden because onions are a great plant, companion planting to scare away bugs. So I'm just mixing them a little bit. I'm gonna let them decompose in place so that there will be additional nutrition for my soil here. But no pineapple grand cherries on the fall. So I found one more area of volunteers, which is this one, and these where I found them in the area where I've had 3 tomatillo plants. I'm hoping they're tomatillo plants, but they could be weeds. I don't know. Anyway, so here is the benefit of volunteer plants, right? So I have here 5 different plants that they will have a chance of a different life in another time zone, not time zone, but growth zone with my dad in Florida. But you also get volunteers through your garden season, right? So if during the summer, in the middle of it, you start seeing volunteers come up and there's still enough time for them to grow and produce, you can grab them and plant them. You can do it in the cup or you can do them directly. And now you are multiplying the plants that you have. Now, one thing to know is when you do this, when you are planting them into cups and moving them where they are, all plants go through a shock. You see how this plant is not all sad? It used to be all happy, now it's all sad. Very normal. Even that one over there fell over. It's very normal. Plants go into shock when they get transplanted. That's why many plants do much better when you direct sow them, which means put the seed directly into the place where they're going to grow. But many times it's not possible, especially in the early spring when it's too cold and you want to get ahead of yourself. Then you had to plant them in cups like this or different mediums so that they could grow, and then you can plant them already as little plants like they sell them in the stores. So just be aware that when you move a plant from one place where it was growing to another, they go into shock, they get a little sad, and some of them make it, some of them don't make it. Most of them make it, but some of them don't make it. So I put them here in the shade, so that they don't have to deal with not only, you know, the shock, but also the sun and all of that. So here they're getting a little bit of sun, and not a lot. They're still outdoors, and I'm giving them a chance to get established before I go on my trip in a couple of days. I hope that you enjoyed today's video and you learned that your plants just want to grow. And sometimes when you get those, free gifts of volunteer plants, you can give them a second life and give them to family and friends. And sometimes you can't because there's just not enough time for them to be able to flourish. But that just goes to show you how they just want to live and grow. So why not throw a couple of seeds out there in your backyard, in a pot, in a cup, and see what happens, and see how things, grow and become something amazing that gives you not only food for your body, but also for your soul. All right? Thank you for being with me in this video, and we'll see you in the next video.